House of the Dragon, much like its predecessor, is full of symbolism. While some signs are much easier to detect, others might require more time and knowledge. Look at Aemon's scene in the brothel, for example. In an episode where we were shown the Greens' inability to show love for one another,
I do not wish to hear of it.
Aemon's search for motherly love was a bit on the nose. I mean, right when Alicent was trying to open up to her father, Otto said he did not wish to hear of it. The next scene was Alicent doing the same with her son Aegon, who was crying. Alicent couldn't even put a hand on his shoulder, so it's no wonder Aemond is in a feudal position with an older woman who has red hair, looking for the love and affection he probably never got from his own mother. I would argue that there's another scene in episode 2 that had lots of symbolism contained in it. The scene during the funeral procession where, overwhelmed and overstimulated by the crowd around her, Helaena looked up and the camera focused on the hops, the petals falling from the sky. Not only the cinematography was incredible in that scene, but there were also more than a few references, even in that few second shot. Let's analyze the different meanings behind that short scene. This video is for everyone who thought the poor dead child's head was gonna fall off as the carriage was stuck in the mud. Now, we all know that Helaena is a dragon dreamer and her sayings have been proven to be prophetic. So while she was looking up at the sky like that, it's possible that she was having another vision. And the focus of the scene was also on these things falling from the sky. I first thought they were flower petals, but apparently they are hops. While they were slowly falling from above, they resembled ashes from dragon fire, which means Helaena was having a vision of the war that is afoot. Even though there are other potential meanings behind the scene, and I will talk about them in a minute, I think Helaena seeing the dragon ashes from the upcoming war in a vision is the main interpretation because it was paralleled in a later scene with Rhaenyra, who was looking at the dust in the light from the window, which resembled again ashes. While Helaena saw the hops, aka the ashes, during her son's funeral, Rhaenyra saw them while playing with her children. This parallel was interesting in that it showed two mothers in completely different conditions, but also because they both saw signs of the upcoming war. There's also a different point to consider here. What if Helaena was not only seeing the near future? What if she was also seeing far, far ahead and the burning down of King's Landing? In The House That Dragons Built, the documentary show that looks behind the scenes of House of the Dragon, I saw Helena's drawings, which demonstrate that she sees far into the future. For example, there are wolves whose heads are being cut off, as well as fish and fish scales near them, which 100% should point to the Red Wedding. There's also a boar that might be referencing Robert Baratheon. There are other drawings there that actually spoil House of the Dragon, so I'm not gonna go into them, but it looks like Helaena can see the events that will happen 2 centuries later. So in this scene during the funeral procession, she might actually be seeing the fall of King's Landing, as there were also lots of ashes there if you remember. It's also interesting that the hops in the air remind the viewers of the snow Daenerys saw in her vision in the 2nd season of Game of Thrones. Do you remember that scene in the throne room? Maybe that was a good reference, or maybe I'm reading far too much into things. Some people think, or at least they wish, that through Helena's visions we can see some Game of Thrones scenes on the show, if it's true that she actually sees that timeline as well. Some even hope to see Bran Stark as he's a green seer and the three-eyed raven. He might be anywhere in the past watching these events unfold. I understand why fans want to see him in the background somewhere, although I'm not sure if the show should do that. I think House of the Dragon should remain as it is and not really go into the Game of Thrones territory. Symbolism and references are fine, but showing actual characters and events would prevent it from being its own thing. What do you think? Back to the analysis, let's say you don't believe she was having a vision here, or maybe you think there are other possibilities, because I think every time Helaena had a vision on the screen, she couldn't help but speak what she saw.
I'm afraid.
Don't be.
Not the dragons. The rats.
So in this scene, she might have just been dissociating or thinking of something else. I, for one, believe that even though what I'm about to say is dark, she was looking at the bridge and seeing the height and eventually contemplating suicide. In the end, she was watching the hops falling, so she might have been thinking of throwing herself off of that bridge. It seemed to me that she was looking at the sky and just wanted to fly away, as she was really overwhelmed by everything that was happening. Also, in the shot that focuses on her face, the veil looks like it is drowning her face, symbolizing how she's drowning in her grief at that moment. Even though the veil is supposed to be transparent, you get this smothering feeling from it. At a point where she was feeling claustrophobic, the veil was also a good element that added so much meaning. Honestly, I read the Game of Thrones books, but I haven't picked up Fire and Blood yet, so I don't know where Helena ends up as a character. Does she lose her mind and end up being a Cassandra, constantly talking about prophecies that no one believes her for? Or does she get in the revenge mode and fight in the war? Will we get to see her riding her dragon, Dreamfire? I feel like it will be more like my first guess, as I don't see her healing from the trauma of her child's death. What do you think will happen to her? I will continue watching this show. I'm loving it so far. This was the first video I did on the channel on House of the Dragon, but I intend to continue if this video gets any traction. Share your thoughts in the comments if you want to support me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I see you again.